So I am going to be doing something a little bit different. I was inspired by, there he is, someone very special to me, which you'll hear about later in the video. This is going to be unedited, and I'm sorry in advance, but I'm currently talking to somebody special, so in between talking, I'm going to be answering a couple of texts, but you know that it's okay. Come on, we're okay. Okay, so I'm going to be telling my life story in this video, and kind of telling you guys how I grew up, what I've been through, and all that. And kind of like where my life is right now. So maybe you guys can kind of get a better understanding of me, really. So, hold on. Oh, he's so sweet. Okay, so growing up, I basically had a normal childhood. And I have a script up here, that's why I'm looking up here. I had a stay-at-home mom, which I'm very thankful for. My dad worked a lot, but he was home in the evenings most days. I can't really complain about the way I grew up, because we went on like a couple vacations. Like we went to Disney cruise to Mexico, and that was really fun. And we also went to Disney World. Those are really the two vacations I really remember. I grew up in the Episcopalian church. I attended with my mom mainly, and sometimes my dad would tag along. And I was very active in the church. I would sing songs, I would play my trumpet, I would do this and that and the other, and I was also an acolyte. So if you don't know what that is, I don't feel like explaining it, so look it up. But really that's the gist of my growing up, without music, because that's a story in and of itself, which I'll get into in just a second. Ooh, I can't spell. Okay, so the beginning of my musical journey kind of starts out like this. I started performing when I was 5 years old in my primary school's talent show. I sang Part of Your World from The Little Mermaid, because that was my favorite Disney movie when I was growing up. I wanted to be Ariel so bad. I've been performing every chance I got since then. Christmas of 2007, I got my very first guitar. It was pink. It was my favorite guitar. It was just a little kid's guitar. You know, those just kind of not really great ones. Yeah, that was basically the first guitar that I had. It was the best gift I had gotten at that point in my life. Just the best. Shortly after that, I started getting guitar lessons. My dad's stirring. I don't remember my first couple of instructors, but I remember the last one I had. He really made an impact on my life. He really changed my life. He inspired me to do everything I wanted to musically, especially when I did America's Got Talent in 2013. I was 12 years old. It was great. But Patrick, if you see this, thank you for everything. I hope I can make you proud. I also briefly took voice lessons as well. But when I started middle school, I was introduced to the idea of being in the school's band program. It really intrigued me, so I signed up to give it a try, and I told my parents all about it, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. I walked into the band room, and I remember this so distinctly. He's one of my favorite people in this whole world, Mr. Turner. He was just sitting there smiling, and he was just so excited to see all these new kids coming in and getting ready to start band and all that. He showed me around the different instruments that I could possibly play. I tried out several. I tried out the clarinet. I could only get a couple of squeaks out of it. And then I tried the trombone. It was too big for my tiny little body. I couldn't reach my hand all the way out there to get to like the low notes, and my lips were too small for the big mouthpiece. I tried the drums. I couldn't quite get the rhythm right. It was disappointing because I love the drums. And then we landed on the trumpet. And at that moment, I knew my life was it was changed. Because I could get a decent sound out of it. It still kind of sounded like crap, but I could get a decent sound out of it. And it just astonished me. I was hooked. I could get a decent sound out of it, I already said that, without having any knowledge of the instrument. So after picking out my instrument, I started going to band classes to learn how to play it and how to play it well. I ended up making some very good friends throughout middle school band, some of which lasted clear through high school. But I ended up getting very good at trumpet. So much so that I would get several solos throughout middle school and high school. And in high school, and I'm not trying to boast here because I don't know who's going to see this video, but I even got the opportunity to do solos that normally the upperclassmen would get. And I think I kind of got an advantage from that just because of what happened later in the story, pretty much. I'll get to that later. But I was also in choir class throughout middle school, and the elite choir, my last 2 years in middle school, which is called the Castle Choir. It was just, you auditioned for it, and if you had a sense of music and you were taking it seriously, you would get into this elite choir. I got several solos and duets in choir. It was the time of my life. I just loved it. I would like to consider myself very musically inclined, and I think it showed, but I'm not trying to boast. Yeah, Lord only knows. So high school. Middle school came and gone, and I was on my way to high school. I was so excited for band camp my freshman year. I was so excited. I woke up 2 hours before it was time to go and got all ready before my mom even woke up. So, once she did, we headed off to the high school. I was one of the first ones there because I was just, early, so eager. Where was I? I think I got there before my band director. Really, really do. But once those band room doors opened, and I breathed in the smell of valve oil and sweaty teenagers, I practically started jumping for joy. Because I was like, this is what the next 4 years of my life is going to look like. This is what I've been preparing for the past 4 years, So after a few minutes of me taking in the sights of the new band room, some of the other students started coming in. Some of my friends from middle school and some I didn't know yet. I was excited. I was so excited to meet everybody. I was so excited to make new friends. That was all my life was back then, was making friends. And now I sit in my room all the time. But stuff happens. I then saw one of my friends from church that I grew up with, who was an upperclassman. She was a couple years older than me. And she was walking in with this guy. And he practically took my breath away with just a glance. Now remember this guy, because he plays a very important role in this story, and it's not really a good one. When my friend noticed me, she ran and hugged me and introduced the boy to me. He was a senior trombone player. I'm not going to tell you what his name is. I'm not going to tell you what he looks like, because if you're one of my close friends, you know who I'm talking about. You might not know what happened, but you're going to know at the end of this video. It's inevitable. You're going to figure it out. I was speechless at the sight of this guy. I didn't know it then, but he was one of the great loves of my life up until a certain point, which again, I'll get to later in the story. Once all the students got into the band room and we all put our instruments together and started getting excited for the day and whatnot, the band director called us out to formation outside, and we were off to the practice field to practice our pregame and halftime show. I'll never forget that show. I still play some of the music on my trumpet to this day. I couldn't stop thinking about this guy, though. Excuse me. All throughout the first part of practice, I couldn't stop thinking about him. So lunch came and we marched ourselves back up the hill behind the school, and I sat with my friend from church who was sitting with that boy and some other upperclassmen who I got the pleasure to meet and become friends with. To those people who were in that little circle, I miss you guys, and I hope you guys are doing well. You're probably not going to see this video. I don't know why I'm saying that. The guy was really quiet. He wouldn't really talk. So that was kind of bummer. But then I got a text from my mom, and she said, "You're going to have to find a different way home." And I started getting nervous. I was like, "Why? What happened? Are you okay?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Just, you're going to have to find a different way home." I was like, that's weird. Band camp that day went by really fast. And then it came time for one of my close friends from middle school to take me home. My anxiety grew and grew as we drove closer to the house. Once I got there, I was horrified. There were police officers everywhere, and neither of my parents' cars were in front of the house. There was one officer that was sticking a government property sign on the front door. And I soon figured out that both of the cars were gone because the government seized them. And some other officers were walking in and out of the house and talking to each other over the radio and stuff like that. I practically jumped out of my friend's mom's car and ran into the house. I didn't talk to any of the officers. I didn't be like, "Why are you here? What's going on?" Like, I just ran in. I wanted to get to my mom. I turned and looked into my dad's room, and he was sitting in there. He had his head in his hands. He was like, I could tell he was crying, but I didn't. I just looked at him for a second, and I was like, "Why are you here?" I didn't say it, but I was thinking, "Why are you here?" And he did. I don't know. I ran to my mom, and she was like, I asked her, "What was going on? What's going on?" And she was like, "Your dad stole a lot of money, and he's going to prison, and we're moving to Tennessee." And I was like, "What?" I remember the world around me started to spin, and I got dizzier and dizzier by the minute. Then the waterworks began, and I couldn't figure out how to stop. I was mad, I was sad, confused, devastated. Every single emotion besides happiness was rushing through my veins at a rapid pace. I couldn't even look at my dad. Couldn't. I just couldn't. I started thinking of all the friends I made on my first day of band camp, especially that guy. Something within me clicked when I met him, but what was the point in thinking of them if it was all going to disappear soon? That was my thought process, at least, at that point. Oh, there's an ad. Oh, no. I thought there wasn't going to be an ad. Oh, come on. Where is it? Okay. Sorry. Some time passes. I finished band camp despite knowing I was going to be leaving. I just wasn't positive as to when I was going to. And I started my freshman year of school. Imagine being 14 years old, knowing your whole life was going to change and just not knowing when. It was bizarre. I soon would find out that the court was gracious enough, thank God, to allow him to stay out of prison long enough for me to finish my freshman year. I'm just so thankful for them to think of me during that time, because normally they wouldn't do that. So I'm forever going to be grateful for that. So back to that guy. Still not going to say his name. He and I flirted off and on. I remember I was the one who started talking to him through Facebook. I was the one who instigated it. We would talk about our similar love for Phil Collins and different movies that we both liked. And we really connected. We would go to the away football games and sit next to each other on the bus, and to and from. It was really nice. I really started to fall for him, but I didn't tell him. Then one day after the homecoming parade, I was fiddling with my contacts because, lucky me, one of them fell out while I was marching, and I was like blind. I was like one eye closed trying to get through the whole parade. It was fun. So I took the other one out, and then he came up behind me and he was like, "Hey, so I have a question." I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's like, "Do you want to go out with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great." I liked him a lot at that point, but from that moment on, we were inseparable. I remember being so heartbroken when he graduated, because I knew I'd be leaving him soon after his graduation for Tennessee. But he promised me that we would make it through it, and that I'd be back in West Virginia soon enough when the time was right. Little did I know. That'll come later. When the day came for me and my mom to move, my two close friends were there. They were twins, and we spent the morning with each other, and then the boy I fell in love with came over. I think another one of my friends was there too. I didn't pay any attention to my friends. I could only pay attention to this guy. I regret that now. I really do, because I don't talk to them except for the one friend anymore. I don't talk to them at all. Then it was time for us to leave. I felt my heart physically being ripped apart watching him and my friend walk away from that house. I fell to the ground and I yelled for him to come back. My mom pulled me off the ground and dragged me to the car. I sat crying for a great majority of the trip, recovering for a few minutes at a time, and then bursting into tears again. I did that for a whole 8 hours. That move broke me apart. I was moving away from all my friends, from who I thought was the love of my life, and moving to a place where I only knew my family. It was a horrendous time. It really was. Shortly after Mom and I moved to Tennessee, my dad left for prison, and he would stay there for a year. He promised he'd call me weekly on Wednesday evenings for 15 minutes at a time. At first, I didn't really want anything to do with him. He's in the next room, so I'm trying to be quiet. He ruined my life and took everything good away from me. So how could I manage to forgive something like that? I was 15. I didn't know any better. But I still answered his phone calls, and I still read his letters that he'd send, and I sent a few back. I was practically numb to everything that was going on. I Skyped with my boyfriend every evening and texted him constantly throughout each day. I did do band while I was in Tennessee, and it was very different from what I was used to. It was a much bigger band, and the people in it were much more advanced than what I was expecting. This might have been the only enjoyable thing about that part of Tennessee besides my family. I only lasted in that high school in Knoxville for a semester. I was being bullied for multiple things. I was too quiet. I was a band nerd. I was white. Just anything you could think of to be bullied for, that's what I was bullied for. Now my boyfriend's commenting on my videos. Okay. Then I started going to an online school, which I really didn't keep up with. I then started to eat my feelings, and I gained a lot of weight within a short amount of time. Just because I was so sad and disconnected from everything and everyone that I loved. Fast forward to about 8 months into me being there. My dad and my boyfriend began to manipulate me into coming back to West Virginia, saying that my mom was abusing me because different things, and because I loved my boyfriend so much, I listened to him more than I listened to my own mother and my family, which I really never should have done. 1 month later, my mom and I got into a huge blow-up fight in the middle of the night. We took a drive around Knoxville so we didn't wake up my grandmother, and at that point I was almost finished with that semester of online school. And I just couldn't take it anymore, living there apart from my boyfriend and my father. At least, those were the lies that I was being fed on the daily. She agreed to let me move back, and I swear to you, my boyfriend and father were overjoyed. I was too, but I was second-guessing it a lot. I've never been apart from my mother before, and that was a long way away from her. It was a 8-hour trip one way. It was scary, but I packed up all my things and she took me back home to West Virginia. When I tell you I ran into my boyfriend's arms, I ran into his arms. I about knocked him down. I was finally home with him again, and my dad was still in prison at that time, and I grew to forgive him. But he and my boyfriend were feeding me the lies that said I was being lied to by my mom and her family, and that I was being emotionally abused by her and them. But I didn't care. I was back with him and in the place I loved. I stayed in my hometown to finish high school and start college. While I was back in my alma mater, I was very involved in the music department. I did choir, I did band, I played tuba during my junior year, which was very fun. I enjoyed every second of it. And got to be in a main part in the musical Bye Bye Birdie, which, oh my gosh. That was so much fun. My senior year, I did madrigal choir, which I got several solo opportunities, which received many a standing ovation for, and I loved it. It was the highlight of my life. When I left high school, I started working at Ogilvy Park in Wheeling as a server in the fancy dining area. I was like, man, this is so cool. This was my very first job, and I loved every second of it. I also started going to Mount Vernon Nazarene University, but I was only there a month because it was 2 hours away from home, and my roommate was harassing me, and the college wouldn't do anything about it. It said, talk to her and pray about it, and nothing worked. So I just quit going. I stopped. I started shortly after I came back. I started hanging out around my boyfriend more, and at his apartment that he shared with his mom and dad. His dad sadly passed away maybe a year and a half after I got back. To be honest, I don't remember. And I stayed with him all through it all to make sure he was going to be okay. He and I went to his sister's graduation, his grandparents' house on several different occasions to spend a couple weekends with them. We did everything together. It was rare to find one of us without the other. Okay. Forewarning. I am going to dive into talks about physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. If any of these things bother you, and if you're still watching, skip ahead. Just like maybe 2 minutes. It won't take me long to get through this. Okay. After a while, he and I started to get into more and more fights, each one more brutal than the last. I was beginning to figure out that he was manipulating me more and more each day, and he even convinced me to block my mom and everyone on my mom's side of the family because, quote, they aren't good enough for you. They're getting in my way, end quote. He started to get physical with me one day, acting like he was going to punch me or push me down. I remember we were sitting on his couch in his living room, and we were like whisper yelling at each other because his mom was in her room just across the apartment, and the apartment was really small. Then he started to get physical and more angry, so I started to push him away in like self-defense so I didn't get hurt. He ended up punching me upside the head. And that wasn't the first time he did it. Well, that was the first time he did it, but that wasn't the only time he did it. There's the word. I could feel myself getting dizzier by the minute, but then he stormed off into his bedroom. My stupid butt followed him, bawling my eyes out because I thought he was going to leave me. He had convinced me sometime before then that he was the only one who was ever going to love me like he did, and if I wanted to keep it and him, that I better not mess anything up or treat him wrong. I should have left him as soon as he hit me, but I followed him, and I latched onto him, begging him not to leave me. His mom started to come into the room, and he just blamed my behavior as an anxiety attack, so she'd leave us alone. It was shortly before that I was diagnosed with my mental disabilities. Like, I have paranoid schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and really bad anxiety. He graciously enough convinced me to get the help I needed when I started to change into someone he didn't know anymore. Which, I'm going to be grateful for him for making me get that help. But I think that's about it. That wasn't the only time he hit me, but it's the only one I vividly remember. And then many times he would force me to do things in the bedroom that I really didn't want to do. But he convinced me that he would leave if I didn't do these terrible things, which I'm not going to get into for your own sakes. This abusive behavior lasted for about 2 out of the 5 years we were together. Okay. Towards the end, we had planned trips over the 4th of July. This was 2019. He was going all the way across the country to Seattle to visit his sister and her partner, and I was going to Tennessee to visit my family after not seeing basically all of them for 4 years. I was so scared because that was the first time besides the move that we had been apart for that long. The original plan was for us to be gone for 2 weeks and after come back and be with each other again. I got on the plane from Pittsburgh to Tennessee on the 5th of July and was soon back with my mom and her then fiance. I was happy to be back with them after I endured all the manipulation and abuse. My mom was fine through the first 3 days that I was there, and then on the 4th day she had a heart attack, 5th day she had a stroke. I was petrified. We spent a month in the hospital all together, and she was so close to dying on several occasions. And then one doctor figured out what was wrong with her and saved her life. Brought my mom back to me. We kept extending my vacation every week when it came time for my flight to leave back for Pittsburgh, until I eventually decided to stop extending it and I was just going to move back there to take care of her. My dad was livid and my boyfriend was so upset. Little did I know what was going to happen shortly after my mom got out of the hospital. My boyfriend and I were on FaceTime with each other on the day I was going to break up with him, and he proceeds to pull out a ring. He knew that all I wanted for the longest time was to be engaged, to plan a wedding, to do all that. He knew that, and he also knew I was tired of his crap. So he decided to go to Walmart and buy a cheap ring and propose to me over the phone when he figured out what was going on. I'm going to point out right now, because I know a certain someone's going to watch this. I don't care if it's a cheap ring. I don't care if it's a ring pop. It's the delivery, if you get what I mean. But with this boyfriend, it was just a slap in the face. I practically yelled no and proceeded to break up with him and told him how betrayed I felt over the past 2 years that I was with him, to which he denied over and over. But I held up a hand and said, I'm done, and hung up. That broke me because of everything he had told me before about how I'd never be loved by anybody else but him. But I finally broke free. But the trauma and all that ended up giving me PTSD. Shortly after, I started going to trauma therapy through a program called On Track in Knoxville. It honestly saved my life on several occasions. My therapist and everyone else that I was affiliated with over the course of the 2 years I was in that program saved my life. I remember when I first started going, I was so full of grief and despair that I couldn't barely hold back any tears for the first few months. Then I started growing out of my shell little by little, and by the end I was significantly better than when I started. I will forever be grateful to them. I stayed in Tennessee for 2 years. I jumped from job to job, tried college for a semester and flunked out, and jumped from relationship to relationship. I relied on sex for just to make me feel something, because I was just so numb. I hated it in Knoxville. The only thing that really came out of being in Knoxville was my best friend James. He's always there for me and has the same personality I do, and it's just the greatest friendship I could have ever asked for. And we keep in constant contact with each other because he's still in Tennessee. If you see this, James, I love you. I grew tired of being there, though. I missed my hometown so much more than I ever thought I would. The only downside was that my ex was there, and I was worried that when I moved back, he was gonna suddenly appear and try to make me be with him again. And I was like, nope, not today. But I knew I had somebody back home waiting for me to come back. His name is Jay Lee. I've known him for years now. We were in 4-H camp on my last year there together. I knew it was love at first sight, and I had the biggest crush on him. And I was too scared to go up to him and start a conversation. He was hilarious during camp, and he still never ceases to make me laugh like a fool. He loves me endlessly. He treats me like a queen. He is always there for me when I need him. When we started talking again after 5 years, it was like reconnecting with an old friend. He understands me. He doesn't think I'm crazy for my mental stuff. I love him so much. Jay, you're everything to me. And I pray to God I never lose you, because I'm sure that would kill my soul. You light my life up. You give my life meaning. I really can't imagine my life without you. I love you. He has a YouTube channel. He posts like gaming stuff and like life updates. He's talked about me on there before. So I'm gonna put his channel in the description below. And that's my life up until now. I'm back in West Virginia, living my life alongside the one I love dearly, and I believe my past made me the woman I am today. And to all who have helped me along the way, thank you. I can't wait to see what the future holds. I'm sorry it was a long one, but if you're still here, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in my next cover video. See ya!